This is the Jarvis 21, USSS 21 gun. We're going to show how to take it apart and put it back together and troubleshoot it. First, we'll take the nose off. We've pre-loosened these so they come off easier. Normally, we use try to use a torque wrench to take something to tighten them. And then a lot of times the nose will be stuck slightly, so you'll have to tap it off. Just tap back and forth until it comes off. It can only go on one way. These two bolts are a different pattern, so it can only bolt on one way. You don't have to worry about where you turn it because it'll only bolt on one place. When you take it apart, make sure you check to make sure those two O-rings are in place. The rod will not come out right now because the catch is still latched. We need to put a little bit of air to unlatch the catch. That is the B port. That'll let the piston come out. You notice the piston rod is a oblong shape. It is lightweight aluminum, so it has high speed. One piece with the piston and the catch nut on top with two bumpers. And the bumpers go on open face to open face. And then as you take it apart, you would want to take the cap off and inspect to see if there's any dirt or debris inside. There can be a buildup of dirt or carbon, whatnot, from the Simply loosen all four of those bolts so you can remove the cap. There is a spring underneath the head contact, and there's three O-rings on the inside. And inspect them and make sure that they're clean and there's no debris inside, no debris around the spring. The rod can only go in, it is in the same shape here as the rod, so it can only go in one of two ways. It doesn't matter which way you put it in. And then next, I would remove the catch housing. There is no studs in this gun, so you don't have as many seals as previous models, which makes it easier to keep from having leaks. Remove the plate, look at the O-ring that goes inside the housing, and there's another O-ring that goes on the catch piston. The catch piston is what moves the catches in and out to grip the rod and hold it under pressure when it's being fired, and inspect them to make sure that they don't have a lot of debris inside. To make it easier to take the inside part out, remove this O-ring on the inside so you don't have to pop it over the O-ring. We use a little pick tool of some kind to take that out, and then turn it over. There's 8 M5 bolts that hold it, the catch in place. And this will slip out as a unit. You may have to work it back and forth. It's a fairly tight fit. And underneath all these bolts is little O-rings that seal on these counterbores for them. These bolts go and screw in there, and that's what keeps it from leaking when it's put back together. So to take it apart, you simply have to just and they'll come apart like this. This is called the catch retainer. That keeps the catches in place inside so they don't fall out like that. So the catches, they pivot on this little ring here, or ledge. They pivot back and forth so there's no pins. They just all set inside there. And then the catch retainer is what holds it from coming out. And this O-ring here acts as a catch release aid. It makes them pop out when the catch is released. So how the catch releases, as the catch piston goes up and down, the piston rod hits the top of it, pushes it up, and that causes the catches, which are stationary in the top, to slide in and out, and that's what forces them in and out to grasp onto this. So the main thing on them is to look and make sure there isn't a lot of wear on the groove where it catches onto the rod. It'll start to wear on the edges, and then it'll progress to the inside. And if it gets to where you're questioning whether it's going to catch, it'll be shallow on the sides and wore on the inside, and you'll also see wear on the edges out here. Typically, they should wear out here long before they'd wear on the catch pivot point on top. So that's how you disassemble the catch. And then on the catch piston, look to see, I don't know if you can see this, there's a lip in here that moves that, and if it wears too much, it'll start to round it over, and you'll see it'll be very apparent if it gets wore too much. So now you're down to where it's just the handle. You can see where there's the liner on the inside, and typically you shouldn't have to take the liner out too often to clean, because on this end it is open and you'll be able to see if there's a lot of debris down inside. So now we'll remove the handles. You take this off as a unit. You shouldn't ever have to remove the guard very often, because you can remove the trigger by removing the roll pin and taking it out with it on. You normally shouldn't have to take that off. But when you take it off, there's a spool valve on the inside of the handle here. Make sure that it doesn't drop out or the spring come out. And then the next step is, this is the cushion mount for the handle. It pivots slightly, so when you fire, there's a urethane cushion on each side that allows it to take some of the shock off your hand. So this is on the inside of that, so when that rocks a little bit, you're trying to squeeze each side of it, so that takes some of the shock off your hand. There's 3 bolts to take this off. Normally you can just take it off as a unit, looking to make sure there's 3 O-rings on the top, none on the bottom, they're on the other piece. But you shouldn't have to take this apart very often. If you do, you have to remove these 2 bolts that are in these holes here and remove the 2 pivot pins, which the easiest way is just to put it in a vise and squeeze it to take some of the pressure, and then they just slide apart. There's 3 pieces of tubing that have to seal inside these cavities. There's 3 O-rings, 1 in each cavity, 6 total. So you just, if you did take it apart, make sure you can blow air through it. And it says nose side and nose side, so those 2 go together so the passages line up. This way there's no external tubing to complete the passages from this side to the handle. But you shouldn't have to take this apart very often. Then next, you could take the main valve body off. This part I'm taking off here is a quick exhaust for the catch. So as soon as it fires and goes to return up the piston, it drains all the passage going up to the catch. So you can rapid fire easier and it'll be a more secure latch. There is a little valve on the inside. We'll disassemble it in a little bit. So you remove the other 2 bolts. And then you can remove the main valve body. There's a number of O-rings on this main valve body. These up here go to the passages in the main handle, and these 3 O-rings down here are just for this quick exhaust. And what that does, as soon as it reverses it and gets the air signal on the inside of the cylinder, it shifts the valve and it drains the passage going up to here, so there's no air left in it as soon as it reverses. And here you have basically the bare housing, and to demonstrate that a little clearer, this is a main housing without a liner. If you can see on the inside, there is 2 M14 bolts that different mounting brackets mount to or swivel. If you ever had to loosen the swivel bushing, make sure that you take the liner out so you can hold a wrench onto it so it doesn't back off or loosen. These are all Loctited connections. In the same way with this block here, there's 3 M8 socket head bolts that screw on from the inside. So there's no studs on this. There is 3 O-rings underneath this that seal it, but we don't have any O-rings in all these fasteners, which is a big improvement. So to press the liner in or out, you grease it up with some oil, and you just put the tool so you can put it in a press and push it until it stops, till it bottoms out. or to remove it, you would just turn it over and put it on the top side and then press it out the other side in a press, making sure that you have clearance, of course, for that. But the air passage we was talking about on the inside of the housing is when the piston goes down in the liner and it goes underneath these series of little holes, that allows for an air signal to go into the main valve body to shift the valve and make it reverse, which also drains the catch. So if you do take it apart, just ensure that there isn't any debris inside here. You could possibly have a cushion that crumbles if they get too hot. Just make sure you have all the debris cleaned out. Blow all your passages to make sure that they're clear. And we highly recommend, if you take the liner out, usually I would replace the O-rings. There's 3 O-rings on the inside, because you could scratch them or cut them and not know it. Okay, so the main valve body, it has a exhaust plate on the side here, and all that is covering up a passage that goes up to your exhaust muffler. Have the M4. I got it. And you want to take that off if you're disassembling the valve body, because there could be debris trapped in here. The exhaust goes both ends of the valve, and it goes up into the muffler. And you also want to remove the muffler to make sure there isn't a lot of debris caught in it. There's really no way of cleaning it besides trying to blow it out. So in time, you may have to replace the muffler. The muffler is a 3/4 pipe size, and the inlet is a 1/2 inch pipe size. To take the main valve out, have to remove this little cap. And this valve cap will only go on one way. So you remove we have a little pair of pliers. There's a valve on the inside, and this is the valve cap or cover, and it has a little O-ring the same size as the O-rings on the outside of the valve. The valve spool should just come out easily like that. And there is a spring on top here, which is inside here at this time. We'll have to take it out. To remove the valve sleeve, you insert the tool inside and tighten it up, and that tightens the urethane rubber insert to where it'll grab it and you can pull it out. There it should. There it goes. So this just squeezes that and pulls it out. We want to point out the valves are a lapped high precision piece of valving. There is no seals on the inside. It is metal to metal. So you have to be very careful with it. If you drop it on the floor, put a pair of vice grips on it, you can damage it very easily. But if you take good care of it, they'll run millions of cycles. But use extreme care when you handle it, that you don't drop it or squeeze it, because it will ruin it. So on the inside, there's the spring that goes on to the spool. So you want to make sure you have that come out with it. Of course, you can inspect the inside and make sure there's no debris anywhere, and then wash it up or wipe it down. So we're down to the bare housing, and the only other thing we haven't taken apart is the little catch valve body, which has the same type of valve, except it's a smaller one, which is actually the same valve as inside the main handle. So the main handle, the same way, it has a smaller valve puller that'll go in and pull that out the same way we did this larger one. And there is a spring underneath this cap, so you want to be careful it doesn't fly off and get lost. Okay, it's the same type of construction, just a lot smaller, and the pullers work the same way. They just squeeze it out to where it'll come out. And just clean, and if you have to, replace the O-rings, and it should be ready to go. Same way with it, they'll last millions of cycles if you take care of them. So this is how you disassemble the 21, and we also have a 22A assembly that we'll show when we put it back together.